record, and we are recording. Hey Bishop, how are you?
Crazy times that we're now living in, my friend, but in the final analysis, God is still in control. And I
Absolutely.
believe some way, somehow, I don't know how it's going to happen, President Trump will win re-election. This is going to the Supreme Court because this is indeed the biggest scam in American political history. So some interesting times that we're now living in.
Absolutely. And what a scam. Everything is just crazy. I mean, the energies this week have been so intense, especially here in the UK, because, you know, we've faced a lot of backlash. And when I say we, all us truthers here about, oh yeah, Trump was going to win, was he? Yeah. You know, who's excited now? But thank you, Bishop, for blessing us with this another show. I'm so excited about today because we proceed from our previous show, the excellent show that was well received, The Coming Fall of the Biden Crime Family. Oh my, the emails and messages I've got. What a mind-blowing show. And today it's all about the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse.
Yes,
what
ma'am.
a week. What a week. So before I let you lead the way, Bishop, I just want to say that my audience love you. They really do. I love you. My audience love you.
I love you too. Yeah.
You know, and if you want to hear the Bishop's other podcasts, please go and check him out on his channel, the Global Spiritual Radio Media Group on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, from the bottom of my heart, Bishop, thank you for helping me on my truth journey to evolve on the public arena. You know, I haven't found it easy, but yeah, it's just been special. So I'd like you to take today's show away. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you so much, my friend. You are a true patriot, a true woman of God. I'm telling you, you're going to transform England. I really believe that. I want to talk about a very unique topic coming from the tail end of this scam of an election this past Tuesday, the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. Interesting, the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. In order to understand what went on this past Tuesday, we have to look at the original foundation of liberalism, which is the offspring of Marxism, communism, socialism, Leninism, and Maoism. So all of these vulturistic isms are the foundation, which is Luciferic in its origin. So there is a wise saying I want to reveal to your audience, and that piece of wisdom is that everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact.
Absolutely.
Everything we see is a perspective, not a truth. So then the origins of this liberal demonic apocalypse began not with Karl Marx, but with Lucifer himself. Because when we go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, where the word of the Lord says that darkness was upon the face of the deep. So then, to understand the political psyop of liberalism and communism, Marxism, and Maoism, we have to dissect this from a spiritual paradigm in order for us to wrap our heads around what happened this past Tuesday, where President Trump, who was up by 5 percentage points in Michigan, then the next morning he was behind 70,000 votes to a man who I believe is a clone, another topic for another day, whose rallies, Joe Biden's rallies, had no one. But yet he's in a position to become the 46th president of the United States of America. So there is a term here, what we call keep the grass low to make certain the snakes show. Again, keep the grass low to make certain the snakes show. So then, how do we transcend human emotion? We have to look at the origin of what you and I call communism. So then the origins of the Democratic National Convention, the origins of liberalism that we call Marxism, communism, socialism, anarcho-communism, council communism, Leninism, and the nationalized human subsidies that the Biden administration is going to execute. It has to start with the word Lucifer. Now, according to Revelation chapter 12, verse 4, a third part of the angelic government of God revolted, rebelled against the theocratic government of God in heaven. Why? Because they were led by an angel whose past is rooted both in pain and trauma. Now, somebody said, well, what does pain and trauma, Bishop, have anything to do with liberalism? I'm glad everyone is asking me that question. Because power is so important to the left, because they're addicted to power, because a power is addicted to them. So it starts with the term Lucifer, not just in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12, but also Revelation 12 and 4, and then going back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. In darkness. Now, the Persian term for darkness in Genesis 1 and 2, it begins to reveal the answer of the state of one's being. So the deep state was birthed in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, during the fall of Lucifer, when God kicked him out of heaven, removed him, because Lucifer wanted God to abdicate his conservative throne of thinking. So there's a difference between liberation versus emancipation. What the Democratic Party wants, they don't want Americans to be liberated. They want Americans to be emancipated. What does that mean, Bishop? Emancipation is a counterfeit form of liberation, whereas the deep state will control you as a deep state asset. Now, Lucifer, look at his name in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. I'm just laying foundation concerning the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse, because it's coming. When you spell the word Lucifer, it has 7 distinct letters in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Jesus Christ, the eternal master in the Gospels, wrote in Matthew, the 12th chapter, when the unclean spirit, that's what liberalism is, comes out of a man, he takes with him 7 other spirits more worse than himself. So the Democratic Party is a demonic psyop whose origins actually did not begin in 1828 through Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, including the supporters of one Andrew Jackson. The Democratic Party, in its origin, like to call its origination, began 6,000 years ago because of the fall of Lucifer in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. Now, when you take the word Lucifer, and since, to my understanding, my friend, Hebrew is written from right to left. So the term Lucifer, that we call Lucifer, written from right to left, becomes a Latin Vulgate expression recycle,
Wow.
which means, excuse my expression, the recycling of fecal matter. That is the essence of the Democratic Party. They are both the psyop of Lucifer and they are the waste of Lucifer. And so Lucifer, meaning communistic light or enlightened one. This is where we get the term illuminato, to be illuminated, or Illuminati. So what is the middle letter of Lucifer? Is the letter I. Jesus said the light of the body is the eye. And the reason why that we're seeing the deception from the election, it is because of the eye of the thinking of the left is so distorted and corrupted in their hunger and appetite for power that they will cheat their way to the top.
Absolutely.
Well, in the book Rules for Radicals, through Saul Alinsky, who was the political protege of the Bonnie and Clyde team of Bill and Hillary Clinton. So the Rules for Radicals, I believe it came out between 1971 to 72. Saul Alinsky's parents, Benjamin Alinsky and Sarah Tannenbaum, immigrated from Russia right after the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. They immigrated to Chicago, the hometown, the political hometown of one Barack Hussein with 1,000 different aliases, Obama. So then, to understand the madness of what went on this past Tuesday night through the watermark ballots, it is a deceptive manifestation of what and who the Democratic Party is. So then the term Lucifer, now what is the middle letter for Lucifer? Is I. So then Joe Biden, which I personally do not believe that this is Joe Biden.
No, I don't believe it.
According to Q, he was taken out by the Trump administration because of treason. They took him to Guantanamo Bay and took him out.
Yeah, you
And I'm going to say something that may sound crazy. I don't have any proof. I believe that's not Jill Biden. Because if she were to be kept alive and she knows that's not her husband, she would spill the beans. So they took her out too.
100%. It's not
100%. So the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. So the term apocalypse means a coming judgment. But before I further get into Lucifer, do you know who I blame, my beautiful sister, for this debacle from Tuesday night? I don't blame Barack Obama because we know he's a devil. I don't blame these Jezebels, Nancy Pelosi, okay, in the squad, led by a former bartender who is now going to enact the Green Deal. If God forbid, if Biden gets elected, okay, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But I blame the Christian pastors for supporting the most corrupt politician in the annals of American history. Going back last year when Christianity magazine, that was once a conservative magazine, has been taken over by what they call Christian communists. I'm going to break that down in a minute in concerning the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. It was Christianity magazine that was first created by the late Dr. Billy Graham, whereas the granddaughter of Franklin Graham is now supporting Joe Biden. I blame the church for supporting the most corrupted politician in American history. It's not Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton, it's Joseph Robinette Biden. How can the church justify this woman of God? And I told the church the other day, okay, on my radio show, you cannot have it both ways. You can't say that you are pro-life, but yet you're voting for a pro-death politician concerning Joe Biden, the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. So then the term Lucifer not only means illuminated one or counterfeit light, but written from right to left rabbinically reveals the term recycle. Excuse the expression, the recycling of fecal matter. That is the very essence of who and what the Democratic Party is. So Lucifer has 7 letters, okay? Then the term liberal has 7 letters. So then the middle letter of Lucifer, I, the middle letter of liberal is E. It's all about I because it's about me. That is the psyop of what we call communism, socialism, okay? Marxism that was designed by the 19th century devil by the name of Karl Marx. The 18th, 19th century family bloodline of the Marx family that goes back to the 1400s. It's going to blow your mind here. So then the fall of Lucifer became the birth of what we call modern liberalism. So then there's a difference between liberation versus liberalism. So then true liberation is in Jesus Christ, built upon the Christian conservative values that your parents and mine taught us. There's a counterfeit opposite of that, because anything that God creates, Satan brings a counterfeit. Barack Obama is a counterfeit. Joe Biden is a counterfeit, okay? So then the term liberal, it means counterfeit freedom. You're actually not free, but you're only a controlled asset. So in Genesis 1 and 2, the Persian interpretation of the term darkness simply means the state of one's being. So, and darkness, or the state of one's being, was upon the face of the deep. This is where we get the term deep state, or a shadow government. So, in darkness, or the state, was upon the face of the deep. Deep state. It didn't begin during the JFK assassination on the 22nd of November, 1963. The foundation of the origination of the deep state through Marxism, communism, socialism, Leninism, and Maoism began 6,000 years ago through the spiritual and the political DNA of a falling creature called Lucifer. So then Lucifer L became Satan S, who is devil today D, there's your LSD. So then the origins of liberalism, communism, socialism, Leninism, Marxism, libertarian Marxism, Maoism, and Trotskyism, that's rooted in Leon Trotsky, who was later taken out by the KGB through the orders of Joseph Stalin, another topic for another day. So let's begin to lay this foundation even further concerning the coming apocalypse of liberalism. I can't wait to get into Q later on. So then there is the pre-Marxist foundation that gave birth to the Democratic National Convention, which is the spiritual psyop, which becomes, here we go, the political reality that we're seeing today. So what you're seeing today is a Machiavellian deception. Now, why will the bishop bring up Niccolo Machiavelli? Because Niccolo Machiavelli had a psychology of liberalism, who then created and designed his own death through deception. So what you and I saw this past Tuesday night, with ballots coming out of, created out of thin air, in Georgia, in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, where President Trump was up by 400,000 votes. Now he's down by, that's a Machiavellian Marxist deception that's going on here. And it has Barack Obama's handprints over it. Now, as a quick side note, Barack Obama doesn't care about Joe Biden. This is about Barack Obama restoring his legacy, because Barack Obama is a tool of Satan, as we're talking about the coming fall of this liberal apocalypse. So then the pre-Marxist psyop that we see in the political reality today in our country started 6,000 years ago during the fall of Lucifer, who wanted to overthrow God. So then, but there were unfallen angels that I like to call Q angels, who were assigned to protect the throne of God. Now, you have people in the truther community who are trashing Q. There are people in the truther community who have been set there, sent by the CIA, the NSA, the Mossad, and including Chinese intelligence, to pose as truthers, when in reality, they are deep state shields or shells sent to destroy you and I. But no weapon that's formed against me or you shall prosper, concerning the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. So then, Karl Marx was of Khazarian origin. Now, when I say Khazarian, I am talking about a bloodline that's Turkish in origin. They're not true Jews. They're only Jews by religion, but they're not Hebrew by birth. And that's going to be people that will write you on your YouTube page, Bishop is a racist and he's an anti-Semite. I tell people, stop. I'm just presenting the facts. And it's up to you people to come up with the proper conclusions. So Karl Marx, including his political partner, Friedrich Engels, wrote the Communistic Manifesto, which has become the political paradigm of Joe Biden. So Karl Marx, okay, now when you take the word Marx and write it right to left rabbinically, you get a Persian term, X-Ram. Now, in Persian demonology, X-Ram was a high-ranking principality of deception. Now, people say, well, Bishop, that's a chance, and that's something that Karl Marx was not. That's a lie. The truth is contained in words. So as a teacher, my assignment is to prepare America for the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. So let's examine Karl Marx before we get to your Q&A session. So Karl Marx was born on the 5th of May in the year of 1880, and he passed on the 14th of May in the year of 1883 at the age of 65. He was a German philosopher. His philosophical worldview was a total hatred to the social order based upon trauma through his bloodline. I'll talk about that in a minute. So Karl Marx was a political theorist who was born during the Prussian Empire takeover of what we call Germany in a town called Trier, Germany, capital T-R-I-E-R, okay? He then marries a woman in 1843 by the name of Jenny von Westphalen, okay? Then he meets a young man by the name of Friedrich Engels, okay? So Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who went on to create the Communistic Manifesto, which is now the political psyop of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, okay, Nancy Pelosi, and the Biden crime family. So then Karl Marx, boy, I feel an anointing from God. Karl Marx, his Marxist theology and his philosophy, his concept of global power is to revolt against God by tearing down the systems, okay, of government that was ordained by God to be theocratic, okay? So then, Karl Marx, his father, he was the son of a man by the name of Herschel Levi, capital L-E-V-I. Herschel Levi, the father of Karl Marx, changed his name to Heinrich Marx. Why? To hide their money from the conservative government of Prussia. So then Herschel Levi, the father of Karl Marx, was born in a town called Saarlouis, capital S-A-R-R Louis, capital L-O-U-I-S, okay, in Germany, which is a city in Saarland, the capital of the district of Saarlouis, which is the center of global liberal thought today. So then the father of Karl Marx, Herschel Levi, he himself is the son of a man by the name of Marx Levi, L-E-V-I, Mordecai, who was a straight up Marxist before his grandson, Karl, coined the term. So the Marx Levi Mordecai was a rabbi in the town of Trier, Germany, okay, during the late 1700s, early part of the 1800s. And it's getting deeper here as we're talking about the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. Now, if Bishop is going too fast, slow me down because I'm like a machine once I get started.
Yeah,
so then Heinrich Marx, the father of Karl Marx, okay, was an attorney in 1814. Heinrich Marx, the dad, the father of Karl Marx, was an attorney in the year of 1814. But what is so interesting, upon Napoleon's 1815 defeat at Waterloo, the Rhineland came into the conservative control of the Kingdom of Prussia. And now this is powerful here. You have to understand why people think the way they think. If you're going to change a person's life, you have to change the way that they think. So Heinrich Marx, the father of Karl Marx, okay, in 1815, hated the Republican conservative government of the Kingdom of Prussia, who was over the Kingdom of Germany, okay? This is the father of Karl Marx. So Heinrich Marx, Karl's father, in 1815, because of the defeat at Waterloo, the Rhineland came into the conservative control or the Republican control of the Kingdom of Prussia, which it was detached from French administration. In the 1812 edict, my sister, that asserted that Khazarians could not occupy legal positions at the state level within the Prussian conservative government, enforced Khazarians out of political power, much to the chagrin of Heinrich Marx, the father of Karl Marx, which began the seed of thinking concerning liberalism or communism, okay? So the origins of communism, socialism, Marxism, Maoism, which gave birth to this child called liberalism, from which the Democratic Party is trying to take power at any cost, which will bring about their demise as a demonic apocalypse. So the Marx bloodline, through Heinrich Marx, the father of Karl Marx, began the origins of liberalism and Marxism. Now, the Marx bloodline, I love teaching here, had infected the provincial Supreme Court of Prussia because of the pain and trauma of these Khazarians, who then built the structure of communism long before Karl Marx was even born. So then communism and liberalism is nothing more than a trauma-based political reality that's based on the historical pain and the historical trauma of people who have not given their pain and their trauma at the foot of the cross of Jesus Christ. So communism, liberalism, is a unfiltered psyop that manipulates the anger of people to become a victim. So the Karl Marx bloodline, going back to his grandfather, okay, the Mordecai bloodline, through Heinrich Marx, the father of Karl, they had suffered from a clinical psychological condition called Munchausen syndrome. Capital M-U-N-C-H-A, then the last four letters, U-S-E-N, Usen. So Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a psychological condition that had infected the Marx bloodline to garner sympathy by making themselves sick politically and socially in order to garner a sick role, which is called victimhood, that someone owes me something because I caused myself to be sick, which then later becomes a plantation within the Democratic Party. So, in other words, the foundation of communism, which is removing the power of finance from the rich and giving it to people who have not earned it, that through the barrel of a gun, I'm going to gain political power. That's not a part of the mind of God. That is a Luciferic psychology that came from Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. Now remember, Rules for Radical, that 1971-72 book by Saul Alinsky. His parents Benjamin Alinsky, and Sarah Tannenbaum took part of the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, which is in the chapters of the Rules for Radicals. So the parents of Saul and Alinsky were Bolshevik killers whose political dogma was Marxist revolution through the bearer of a gun. This is Antifa and Black Lives Matter that predated Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Now, as a side point, the origins of Antifa did not begin with George Soros. You see, there is a medical clinical term called heteropaternal superfecundation. Now, I think I brought that up the first time when I was on your powerful show. Heteropaternal superfecundation. That's a condition where a mother gives birth to fraternal twins. The twins belong to her, but they don't belong to the same father. So Antifa, Black Lives Matter, they both have the same mother, George Soros, but they got two different fathers. The father of Antifa is the Third Reich through the German master spy, Reinhard Gehlen, who in 1933, 6 years before the beginning of World War II, created a secret society of assassins called Action, capital Aktion, in the Germanic tongue means Antifa, anti-fascist. Okay. But the flag of Antifa today was created by a Russian killer who helped take out Tsar Nicholas II and the Romanovs, okay, in the October 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. His name was Mikhailovich Molotov, who was the creator of the Molotov cocktail, which Antifa and Black Lives Matter have today. So Mikhailovich Molotov, who became a political protege of Joseph Stalin, created the Antifa flag that was the flag, okay, of fascists. Wait a minute, I'm confused here, woman of God. Antifa is supposed to be anti-fascist, but they have a flag that was created by a fascist, Mikhailovich Molotov. So the father of Antifa is Reinhard Gehlen, along with Mikhailovich Molotov, but the father of, and this is going to blow your minds, as we're talking about the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. The father of Black Lives Matter is the Thuggy secret society out of India. We talked about that the first time when I was on your powerful show some time ago. So your powerful students and listeners can just type in capital THUGGEE. So the Thuggies were a bandit of killers and robbers from the 1400s all the way up until the year 1900, when eventually the British Crown had taken them out. So this is the father of Black Lives Matter. Wait a minute, Bishop. So how do you equate the Thuggy secret society as being the father of Black Lives Matter? Glad you asked. The first three founders of the Thuggy, and this is where we get the term thug, because their goddess, Kali, Kali, not only means life, from whence we get the term thug life, but Kali is the acronym for California, which is California. California, fornication, which is the political psyop of the Democratic National Convention. So then, the three founders of the thugs, the Thuggy Secret Society, was a man by the name of Burram, okay? Then the letter B. The term Burram in the Sanskrit means black or voided of light. The second man that created the thugs, okay, during the middle part of the 1400s, was a man, okay, by the name of Lavith, capital Lavith. His name means in the Sanskrit, life. Then the third founder of the thugs was a man by the name of Morty, capital Moorti. His name in the Sanskrit means matter or DNA. So this is where we get the term Black Lives Matter. The psyop of Black Lives Matter is rooted in a thuggish psychology. Whereas these three men, who then gave birth to a political Marxist movement, not just of Antifa, but Black Lives Matter, now ran by three stinking witches. I told you I'm a contract killer. I am the conservative John Wick. I got a lot of enemies. And because, not just enemies in the liberal world, but I got enemies even in the truther world. Those enemies are not truthers, but they've been planted by intelligence agencies to keep my mouth shut, which I'm not going to, because I am going to push these devils into hell as fast as I can, as we're talking about. And excuse me for getting excited here. We're talking about the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. Couple of minutes when we turn the floor over back to you. I'm just giving a historical foundation as to why that we're seeing what we're seeing today. So three witches created not just the Black Lives Matter, but created the Thuggy Secret Society. Burram, Lavith, and Morty then become the psychology of the three leaders of Black Lives Matter, three black stinking witches. Alicia Garza, okay, Opa Temeti, and Patrice Cullors. They are professed Marxists. They're not witches because they're black women. And they're not witches because they're women. They're witches, Sister Soni, because their father, the devil, okay, is their God. And there are 16, I want you to listen, this is going to blow your minds, as we're talking about the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. There are 16 chapters in the United States and in Canada through Black Lives Matter. Why the number 16? Glad you asked. Now, their religion, the political dogma of Black Lives Matter, is not just Marxist, but their religion is the West African religion called Odu Ifa. Capital O-D-O, or some spell it capital O-D-U-L. O-D-U-L, Odu, or O-D-U, which is more of a acronym term, O-D-U, then space Ifa, capital I-F-A, which means demons concentrate on the 16 points of the human body for demonic possession through operating and contacting your ancestors. Listen, black people, listen. Your job is not to contact your ancestors.
Wow.
Now, the term ancestor has its roots in the term ancestor, from whence we get the term incest. So that's why the word of the Lord tells us through the writings of St. Paul in the New Testament, that genealogies bring about confusion. Why would Paul say that in relation to what you and I are talking about today? The coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. Because every culture, and this is where we get the term culture, every single culture in world history carries culturistic demons. Now, I am told, and you are told, that there are approximately around 7.7 billion people upon the face of this earth. So these 7.7 billion people that we call bodies or corporations have at least 4 bloodlines per person. In other words, Mr. Smith is part Russian, part Nigerian, part Korean, and part Singaporean in his bloodline. In those bloodlines carry generational curses or demons. So Black Lives Matter, because of the pain and the trauma of these 3 women, they are operating under a spirit that's not of God, to kill, to plunge people into darkness, to pillage, to plunder, to destroy through discombobulation. So then, Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Antifa is the military arm of Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter is the propaganda arm of Antifa. So why is Black Lives Matter, before we get back to the Marx bloodline, why is Black Lives Matter serving a slave master? Glad you asked. George Soros doesn't care about Black people. George Soros is using and manipulating our pain and our trauma against us so that George Soros can destroy America. Now, I'm hearing through Q that George Soros, the real George Soros, is already dead. Another topic for another day. So then getting back to the Marx bloodline, we're almost done here. So the Marx bloodline suffered from Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where they looked at themselves as victims. Someone owes me something, so I'm going to steal from the rich to give to the poor. Well, that's a psychology through Peter Pan that's rooted in communism. Someone owes me something because I'm a victim. Let me tell you something, Sister Soni. Bishop Gators is not a victim. I have already overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of his testimony, as we're talking about this coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. So Munchausen disease has caused Black preachers to vote for Joe Biden. Wait a minute, I don't understand. And I was on the Alex Jones show the other day as a guest host for the 4th hour. Why is it that African-American pastors, not all, but a great percentage, are supporting Joe Biden? Joe Biden is not pro-life. Joe Biden is pro-death. Joe Biden was one of the major supporters in the 1973 Roe v. Wade law that has now, as of today, nearly 19 million Black babies have been slaughtered because of the political paradigm of Joe Biden, who became the senator of the state of Delaware in 1972 with the financial backing of a Pakistani devil, Aghan Hassan Abidi, who created the BCCI Bank in the early 1970s. That was the bank that was headquartered in Luxembourg in Europe, with 2 other offices in London and in Karachi, Pakistan. That was the financial bank for the CIA, the NSA, the Pentagon, the KGB, Israeli Mossad, South Korean intelligence, the NIS, the National Intelligence Services, including North Korean intelligence, including Singaporean intelligence and Chinese intelligence, which is the Ministry of State Security, the Chinese equivalent of the American CIA. So the BCCI Bank had billions of dollars of black operation money through these world intelligence services, including billions of dollars from drug lords and drug kingpins. Well, Joe Biden got his financial start from Hassan Abedi in 1972. So then, this brings us to today. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to blow your mind concerning the Marx bloodline. So the psychology of victimhood, I'm going to vote for Biden. I'm a pastor, I'm pro-life, but I'm voting for a pro-death president or politician who said a couple of months ago that you ain't black if you're going to vote for President Trump. That came from a white man. You ain't black, but you got ignorant black people, not all, saying, well, he just spoke off the cuff. It was a gaffe. You see, anytime, this is what we call the slave mind. They give excuses for a racist like Joe Biden. If any of the Trump children said that, the Trump family would be destroyed politically. I'm telling you, it is the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. So, which brings us again back to the Marx bloodline. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a sick psychological condition, not just which black people have, not all of us, but a great percentage of Americans feel that someone owes me something. You're making 4, 5, 6 figures, but you're a victim. That's Munchausen syndrome, which Marxism exploits. And so people voted not because they want the truth. They voted because their pain and their trauma is being manipulated by these deep state devils. And this is a term I may mention, I believe, a couple of times on your show, problem, reaction, solution, where the deep state creates a catastrophe to manipulate people's pains and their trauma. So, because they know that black people are going to react because we never dealt with our historical pain and we never dealt with our historical trauma. So these deep state devils have mastered the psychic of black Americans for the past 430 years. Because of that problem, reaction, solution, we're going to demand a solution from the enemy, in which the enemy will already has already created the solution before they created the problem. This is a game. And then the deep state sends Louis Bean Pie Fruit Bag Farrakhan. They send Reverend Al vitamin B deficient Sharpton. They send Jesse Jackson, who had Dr. King killed because he changed the hotel room, okay, at the Lorraine Hotel in 1968, in April of 68 in Memphis, from the first floor to the third floor. Jesse Jackson did that so that the assassins could have a clear shot at a black Republican, Dr. King. Another topic for another day. Then they send Benjamin Crump. Anytime there is a black kid or a black man killed by a cop, and we don't know as to the reasons why that kid was taken out, we assume the worst without properly investigating. Here comes Benjamin Crump, He gets his $1 million check from the victim's family. He goes back home in his $1 million house, leaving Memphis, leaving Louisville, New York City, Ferguson, Missouri, Baltimore in a mess. Now these are the new slave masters. Benjamin Crump, who is Phi Beta Kappa, who is also a part of the Boule Secret Society, Sigma Pi Phi. Some months ago, I exposed Benjamin Crump on his website, the Benjamin Crump Institute, under the link about Benjamin Crump, okay? The 5th paragraph down, the 3rd sentence of the 5th paragraph, it said 3 months ago that he was a member of Sigma Pi Phi Boule, but he took it out because he was being exposed as a part of the Boule Secret Society. Louis Farrakhan is Boule. Jesse Jackson is Boule, okay? Don Sweet Tea Lemon of the Crack News Network is Boule, okay? All of these devils, including Farrakhan and Reverend Al Vitamin B Deficient Sharpton, they are the slave masters because they have made millions of dollars exploiting victimhood. Because victimhood, Sister Soni, is big business. They don't care about the masses of the people. These Black Marxists are using Black pain and Black suffering to garner attention, Munchausen syndrome by proxy, to establish a Marxist communist socialist state, which is going to happen, God forbid, through Joe Biden. In my conclusion, why did the pastors vote for Joe Biden? Because many of these pastors I call prophets of Baal. You know the word of God. In 1 Kings, when Elijah the Tishbite, and I'm done, was in the battle against the 450 prophets of Baal. The 450 prophets of Baal today support same-sex marriage. These prophets of Baal today support homosexuality. These prophets of Baal support lesbianism, same-sex marriage, and same-sex restrooms, which Joe Biden had said a few weeks ago during a town hall to a mother that he would categorically support an 8-year-old child to go through a sex change operation. This is madness. This is the coming of what I like to call the liberal apocalypse. So in my conclusion, there is a victimhood theology. I'm going to get some Black folk mad, but I love you. There is a victimhood theological doctrine called Black liberation theology, which came from the root of Latino and Latin liberation theology during the 1950s and 60s. So to understand as to why pastors voted for Joe Biden, not only are these pastors not pro-life, they're pro-death because they supported Joe Biden. They support kids going through sex change operations because they supported Joe Biden. You can't have it both ways. You can't preach against homosexuality, then you vote for a party who supports it. It's hypocrisy. That's why I'm hated. They hate, oh yeah, both sides, because I'm exposing them for who they are. And I'm going to push these devils, these Black devils, these Kenzarian devils into hell as fast as I can. I'm not talking about all Black folk. I'm talking about these Black liberal preachers. And I'm not talking about Jews. I am talking about Kenzarians, Rothschild, the Priskers out of Chicago, George Soros. They are the puppet masters who have sent spies in our midst, agents, provocateurs, to destroy the truth of community by discrediting the Q movement, but we're not going to allow that to happen. If you can, woman of God, can you put up?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about which ones you want to see. So
Yeah, if you can put up the picture of Karl Marx, he has his right hand inside of his jacket pocket.
hold on.
Yeah, if you can put that up, because I want your listeners to see that. No, that's Lenin. Karl Marx has his right hand inside of his jacket pocket. Okay, no, that's that right there. If you can expand that picture, please. We're almost done. I am just revealing the origins that I like to call the originations of the communist, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist party. Now, this is Karl Marx. Anytime you see a man or a woman in history having their right hand or their left hand inside of the jacket pocket, it represents they are a high-level Mason within the world of Freemasonry. So Karl Marx, his bloodline, had created the most demonic manifesto in world history called the theory of communism. Whereas everyone is on the same financial level, but you're destroying the social order that God established through theocracy. It removes God from the equation, whose name is Jesus Christ, to insert the self-God aspect. That is the same lie that the serpent told the woman in Genesis 3, you'll be as gods, small g, small o, small d, small s. And Sister Sonia, this is the reason why I teach people. If you're going to write the bishop through email, through a text, okay, or Facebook or Twitter, or on our YouTube page, don't say God bless in small letters, because a small g, small o, small d, you're not talking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You're talking about a demon. So my job is to remove this blue pill psyop of America, to red pill them, to see communism for what it is. So the theorem, the philosophical foundation of communism is that the individual is their own Godhead, and that your thinking is God. That is a serpentine doctrine that came from the serpent Nakash in Genesis chapter 3. And you know what communism is also? Communism has a threefold manifestation. It is the body of a snake, which houses, okay? It is the body of a serpent. Let me go through this again. This threefold tier of the life of a communist. Communism is the body of a serpent, Genesis chapter 3, which houses what we call a snake, which gives birth to a political species called the Democratic National Convention. So Karl Marx, through Munchausen victimhood that he was taught by his father, Heinrich Marx, through the trauma of his grandfather, Levi Mordecai, Marx Levi Mordecai, now we see a political party that is trying to take over the presidency through victimhood and deception. Not only are they the purveyors, the Democratic Party, of a problem reaction solution, now we have a non-problem reaction solution. What is that, Bishop? Glad you asked. Non-problem reaction solution means the Democratic Party creates a counterfeit problem, which they want to teach America that there is a problem, but they create the perception that there is a problem when the problem doesn't exist. Remember during the debate some weeks ago between President Trump and Uncle Joe, the moderator was Kristen Welker, okay? Anytime President Trump was about to expose Joe Biden, here comes Kristen Welker, a political whore. Oh, let's talk about race. This is what they do. They use race. Now, is there racism in America? Yes. Is it systemic in certain pockets? But 90 to 95% of Americans are not racist. They're hardworking people trying to put food on the table and clothes on the back of their children. But you have a party who are the great-great-grandchildren of this devil through Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Bonnie and Clyde, Bill and Hillary Clinton, using this clone, Joe Biden, who would be dead in a year. Let me say this again. Joe Biden, God forbid if this man is somehow steals the election, Joe Biden will be dead in a year or have to resign. Who will take over? This whore named Kamala Harris. Yes, Kamala Harris is a whore. Kamala Harris got where she's at now because Kamala Harris laid on her back and Kamala Harris sucked her way to the top. It got you there, Kamala, but you won't stay there. I'm not talking about women.
Apparently, she's also a man.
She's also a man. I'm talking about Kamala, whose husband had said some weeks ago on Facebook, I am now the husband of the next president. So Joe Biden will either die in a year, they'll take him out, or he will resign because of a mental acuity, that whereas he can't remember his left arm from his right foot. He will be decapitated through mentally, whereas he will have to resign through the 25th Amendment, which will give way to Kamala to choose Hillary.
We won't go there, hopefully.
I don't even want to contemplate that.
We won't go there, I hope, because I thought, this is all being taken care of for you.
Yes, exactly. And Trump, he's a chess player.
5D chess is what we're seeing at the moment, for sure.
And there is a chess term called Schuwag, which is a German term. It means the best move that one can make is not to make a move at all. You see, my nature as a man, I don't react. When these devils come against me on social media and on YouTube, calling me everything but a child of God, I never react. People say, well, they're throwing you underneath the bus, Bishop. I say, no, because I am the bus. You see, I am the bus, and no weapon that's formed against me shall prosper. Because I know who I am in Christ.
Yeah.
So when a man knows who he is, when a woman, a great woman like you, my sister, knows who she is, it doesn't matter what people think you are. So that's why there are spies and traitors in the truther community.
100%. And I'm definitely seeing this. I mean, I'm newly evolving on this global platform with people like yourself and other fellow truthers. And somehow I feel divinely led and guided, Bishop, especially after our lovely connection. So yes, I am with you on that point. Did you want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, and stay right there. If you can expand that, okay, that picture right there, expand it. And now to your powerful listeners, as we are ready to give the floor over to you for Q&A concerning the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse, you see the logo of the Democratic National Convention. It happened this past summer in Milwaukee, which Joe Biden somehow won. That star inside of this emblem, okay, this zero, this letter D, meaning the Democratic National Convention, is a star called Baphomet. If you see on the bottom right-hand side, a 5-star, okay, pentagram. This is where we get the term, students, pentagon, pentagram. It means the 5 senses of a man being possessed with demons, like the 16 points of the human body that's possessed with the demons of ancestors through Odu Ifa, Black Lives Matter. So the Democratic Party years ago hid their true intentions, but they're not hiding anymore. They're telling you who they are. So this Democratic National Convention, their God is Lucifer, L, Satan, S, double D, there's your LSD. And if you stay right there, my sister, in the book of the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 28, verse 13, the king called Tyrus. Now, according to the Persian text, the term Tyrus, tie means to be attached, from whence we get the term soul ties. Then the term Rus, R-U-S, reveals one of the names of the high principality gods or demons in Persian mythology called Lenol, L-E-N-O-L, from whence we get the term Thai, Lenol, which is pharmakia, pharmaceutical, pharmacy, witchcraft, divinational medicine.
Wow.
So, oh my God, this is heavy. So the Democratic Party are the purveyors of the Baphomet system called liberalism, that is the offspring of what we call communism, socialism, Marxism, Leninism, and Maoism. Whereas they're going to attempt to destroy the first Constitution of 1776 that was ratified 3 times thereafter in 1781, 87, and 89 that make us the greatest nation on the face of the earth, a Christian constitutional republic, by resurrecting the second Constitution that the Democrats support through the Act of 1871, that now make us not the United States for America, but the United Corporation of America. Whereas corporate entities that we call corporatocracy, they have selected a clone, Joe Biden, to ascend the presidency. You know what came to my mind just now, my sister? And I want your listeners to prove what I'm saying is so powerful in my conclusion concerning the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. There was a movie that came out some years ago called SALT, company S-A-L-T, with Angelina Jolie. She played a deep state Russian spy who worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. In that movie, okay, the United States government was propping up a clone who was a Russian in reality, posing as an American politician to be the president of the United States of America. What we're seeing here today is SALT Part 2, where the real Joe Biden is dead 6 feet in the ground, pushing daisies. This demon here, Joe Biden 2, who will be dead in a year. So this is the greatest takeover of American sovereignty in American history. But you know what, woman of God, it's not going to work. So then that Baphomet star, that is the God of the global Illuminati system. if you guys get time, remember the writer J.K. Rowling of the Harry Potter series. Your listeners can go to Google Images.
You've got a tattoo.
And type in, this term for Baphomet, solved et coagula. That's tattooed on one of the forearms of J.K. Rowling. Solved et coagula. That's also on both of the forearms of Baphomet, which also means Mohammed. Another topic for another day. So solve et coagula or coagulation simply means the global Baphomet Luciferian deep state will depopulate a part of the world by dissolving them, that's coagulation, dissolving them through the scandemic called COVID-19 in order to make way for the blood of the elite, those who connect their bloodline to the fallen angels of Genesis chapter 6. So these devils are going to try to destroy the Church of Jesus Christ. But Jesus said, listen, the gates, and I hope Bill Gates is listening. Jesus said the gates of hell, ooh, I feel like preaching here. The gates of hell shall not prevail against the Church of Jesus Christ. Excellent picture there. Notice that there is the figure 8 and with the double cross of Lorraine. That double cross of Lorraine. Now remember Dr. King getting shot at the Lorraine Hotel in the month of August 1968 in Memphis. So that double cross coming from the DNA strand, this is when we're talking about COVID-19, affects a particular population, whereas it affects another population differently. That's the figure 8. Now the double cross of Lorraine is also on the Oreo cookie.
Wow.
So the double cross of Lorraine is on the Oreo cookie. So Nabisco has its origins in the deep state. They're telling you who they are.
They're everywhere.
That's right. And look at the upside down cross. That's called inversion. What Satan wants to do is to invert God's creation, making a man a woman and a woman a man.
Yeah.
I tell men and women all the time, and I'm done, you can cut it off or you can sew it on. Whether you cut it off or whether you sew it on, a man is still a man and a woman is still a woman.
Absolutely.
So that's the Democratic Party, whose God is Lucifer, L, Satan, S, double D, LSD. But Tyrus or Tylenol, Ezekiel 28:13, there were 9 stones upon the breastplate of this angel Lucifer. But the first 3 stones, Sister Soni, represent the nature of the Democratic Party. Sardis, S, Topaz, T, Diamond, D, STD. So when I say STD, what comes to our mind? Sexually transmitted diseases. That is not only the nature of Baphomet, that's the nature of the Democratic Party. That has the psyop of Niccolo Machiavelli, who then was one of the founding fathers of global liberalism. Yes, it was Niccolo Machiavelli, long before there was a Karl Marx, had created the global demonic psyop of liberalism by projecting victimhood, who faked his own death in order for his family to garner victimhood status, Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And my sister, that is the end when we're talking about the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. If you can go back to one more picture, and we're going to give the floor over to you. Now, there's another picture, okay? Let's look at here. Let's go to the next picture. Let's go to the African-American at the bottom. Well, that's, yeah, the African-American, there you go. If you can expand that. Thank you so much, woman of God. That is Dr. James Cone, the late Dr. James Cone. I believe he passed away back in 2011, okay? Could be sooner, could be later. So Dr. James Cone is the father of Black liberation theology, who then in 1968, a young James Cone, who at the time, his undergraduate and his graduate tuition fees were paid for by a white family. I want you guys to hear me. It was a white family who befriended Dr. James Cone, and I challenge anyone to look it up. A white family had paid for the early tuition of both undergrad and grad of this African-American Dr. James Cone, who said in his book on Black liberation theology that the enemy is white skin. Wait a minute, I'm confused. So you had received money from your white benefactors, but yet he's telling Black America you're a victim. That's hypocrisy. So in 1968, at the bequest of the Cuban government through Fidel Castro, a devil who's burning in hell, Castro had invited James Cone, a university student, to travel, okay, to Colombia, okay, to Medellin, Colombia, to take part in the 1968 Global Liberation Theology Conference, okay? So liberation theology, which is based upon Marxist theology out of the Soviet Union. It was the Soviet Union through the KGB who had recruited Jesuit priests in South America to create a Marxist form of theology where the individual salvation is not in the blood of Jesus Christ. Their individual salvation is according to their skin color through victimhood. That anything that is non-Black is satanic. Black liberation theology is not of God. It comes from the KGB during the 1950s and 60s. So Latino or Latin liberation theology from that 1968 conference in Medellin, Colombia, where James Cone attended. Then he went back to Chicago that year in 1968, then created a Marxist form of theology called Black liberation theology, which today is called the Awoke Church through Eric Mason, where everything is based on Blackness. It's not based upon the blood of Jesus Christ. So they called the angels of God black, Jesus black. Now, mind you, Jesus was not a white man, but long hair and blue eyes. Jesus Christ was a man of color, okay? Even the paintings of Jesus, going back to the 1500s, painted by Michelangelo, the picture of the so-called Jesus from the chest up with long hair, with a white sash, that was the nephew of Michelangelo, whose name was Caesar Borgia. Wait a minute now. So the picture that we see of Jesus is not the Jesus of the Gospels, with the long hair, brown or blue eyes from the chest up. That was Caesar Borgia, not just the cousin of Michelangelo, but the son of Pope Alexander in the Vatican, who had commanded Michelangelo to change all of the paintings of Jesus from a darker hue to a lighter hue. So that's racism. But see, the problem with Black liberation theology, they only concentrate on what I call a Marxist view of God by forcing humanity to give me something because of my victimhood. So Black liberation theology is not of God, and that is the end of the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse, and I thank you.
I mean, every single time, Bishop, you blow us all away with your wisdom, with your knowledge, and it's a testament to how we were taught history about communism, Marxism, and it's just been a load of nonsense and lies. Everything that we've been taught is lies, and how deep you go, how intricate your detail is just, it's not only just powerful, it does blow the viewer away to such an extent that we could almost get a bit of cognitive dissonance here, because it's like, whoa, this is a lot. Now, what I found very interesting, what you talk about before I ask you the questions, was this trauma-based reality. Yes. And victimhood, and the plantation of this victimhood in this sort of psyche that I feel has permeated into society today.
Yes.
So the reactions that were created by the problems and the way people react at grassroots level, when you explain things in depth as much as you have today and in all my shows, you know, I'm really embracing all of this. It just makes me think from a spiritual and a psychological plane about how this energy of victimhood has permeated, not just only in America. We've seen this throughout the world, Bishop. You know, and look at how the death of, and I'm sorry I bring this up again, but we're talking about the victimhood, the Black Lives Matter, the weaponization of Black Lives Matter, and the root of how it all has derived from, and the reaction from the problem that was created worldwide. So this victimhood mentality is not just only, I'd say, within the Black community, it's within the whole world, it's everywhere, you know. Racism is something that we, as a dialogue, that we do not need to be actually discussing in today's society. Exactly. But when you explain it the way you explain it, it makes that much more sense. And I hope my viewers, your viewers, really take this on board, because I mean, it usually leaves me speechless, but there's a lot going on here. There's a spiritual war, yeah? There's history that has not been told to us.
Yes.
And we're going to have to try and get our heads around that, because we've wrapped our head around so many lies. And it's unhooking these paradigms of this cabal, this deep stated paradigms that have infiltrated the mind and every corner of society. And this is one of the main reasons that I wanted to have you on my show from the beginning, because the way you explain it is amazing. And I'd like to just say something really special before we go into the questions as well. Yes, if you recall our last show, around 20 minutes and 42 seconds, I think it is, or just around 20 minutes and 30 or 40 seconds, whichever way it is, there is, and one of the viewers pointed this out to me in the comments of my page, there's a little angel that pops out from your left-hand side. It's like a little tiny, just this small, and it just flies out, and it's beautiful. Wow. Yes, it's so beautiful. And something like this has happened to me on one of my shows, where a blue light appears when I'm speaking about something specific about the 144,000 light workers. Yes. And I speak about that because I see that number a lot, and I see a lot of numbers. But everything that you've said, so everyone that's seen that, just go back to that show on either Bishop's page or mine. So it's definitely another testament to show that everything that the Bishop is saying is of the goodly, godly side, and exposing the very much needed truth that we need to hear, as much as people don't like it. So coming back to today, Bishop, and where we are right now, and with the Q movement, and we did speak about that last time. I mean, with Trump exposing the corruption within the Democratic government about the ballot fraud, what is your opinion and how do you see this all unfolding?
That is a powerful question. That's why you and I work so well together as we're exposing the coming downfall of this liberal apocalypse. This ancestor connection that Black people are propagating, 21,000 votes in Pennsylvania came from the names of dead people that were still on the rolls.
Wow.
21,000 votes. In other words,
wow, just say that again.
21,000 votes of names of dead people were executed to vote for Joe Biden. It means because this Munchausen syndrome victimhood is so deep that they're using dead people, dead ancestors, okay, in order for them to vote. You're invoking demons. 21,000 names of dead people. That's in Pennsylvania alone. So it's God is using you and I and President Trump through what we call Q. Now, a lot of people are trying to discredit Q. And Q goes back to the 1st of April, 1816. We won't go through that again. But saying up to say this, what I'm seeing today about victimhood, it's big business to the point where no one can speak about Obama for fear that they'll be labeled a racist.
Absolutely.
The deep state is using historical Black pain and historical Black trauma as a tool of manipulation to garner their vote, to get them back on the plantation in order to control them through emancipation. But 21,000 votes from 21,000 dead people, that's in Pennsylvania alone. Barack Obama did this back in 2008 through a company called Acorn. Yes.
It's horrific, Bishop, for dead people. I mean, this is something that I'm trying to wrap my head around.
Yes.
The corruption is absolutely so deep. We're looking at the watermarks that they've put on the ballot papers, right? Using the quantum financial system and blockchain technology. That is what I know at surface level. But you pinpoint it to dead people.
Dead people.
That are using. Wow.
Yeah, 21,000 people. We don't know if these people were witches or warlocks or rapers. Get any vote, bring it out of thin air. Not just 21,000 votes from dead people who are still on the roll in the state of Pennsylvania. But also in Michigan, they were using votes from dead people. And I kid you not, from cats and dogs. I know that's crazy. This is how sick the left is. They want power so much. They have tried to destroy this president for 4 years. And I'm telling you, and I'm warning America on your powerful show. America, if you allow Joe Biden to be your president, anything that happens in the next 4 years, you deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, and Trump winning is not only good for America, Bishop, it's good for the rest of the world. And we go back to Q, where a viewer actually said, did the bishop say he is Q? And I think the context that you were speaking is as you are one of the Q anons.
Yes, because there is a gospel of Q, which is one of the 45 missing books that were taken out by the Vatican, right, in 325 AD, and also in 1666 through the Jesuit Secret Society. One of those 45 books was called the Gospel of Q, which was the gospel that Jesus Christ wrote concerning enlightenment, of exposing the dark by the light.
Yeah, dark to light.
So then that's what Q means. We expose not just the darkness, but the darkness within the darkness by the light of Christ, which becomes anon, A-N-O-N, which means to awaken or to be red pilled. So the Gospel of Q was the book of both the internal and the eternal mind of God in exposing historical patterns of darkness through light. That's why a lot of people don't want me to teach about the 17th letter, because there are people who have handlers. Now, I've been accused as being a part of the deep state. Do you think that I would be breathing if I was in the deep state and revealing what I know?
Exactly.
I would be 6 feet under.
What is the logic in that?
It makes no sense. And then they say, well, Bishop has a handler. Yes, I have a handler. His name is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He's my handler, and I am the bus. Okay? So QAnon is a movement to protect the first Constitution that made us an American, in a Christian constitutional republic. Now we're in the battle against the deep state of the second Constitution, who wants to take over this country again, okay, demonically, through the cyber Baphomet. We cannot allow that to happen. No.
It's a spiritual war.
It's a spiritual.
Definitely a spiritual.
It's a spiritual war. You see, and the thing is, and that's a powerful comment that you made. You see, when we talk about, and this is scripture, in John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That term word in Greek is not only the word logia, right? Capital L-O-G-I-A, which means the living word of the thought of God. But there's also a second Greek term for word is logion, capital L-O-G-I-O-N, which means the thought of God's thinking. So the thought of God's thinking is light, which is Q, not just the 17th letter, but the word Q, C-U-E, which means to be in alignment with God, to be on cue, to be watchful, you see? Yeah.
Right. So what you're saying for the viewers to understand, I mean, we've been taken on a phenomenal journey about the insights and the in-depth knowledge that you have on absolutely everything, bringing it back to where we are here in the now, with this knowledge now, with what's going on with the media, which is my last question. Where Trump is right now, and the light clearly is winning, but the media has been the greatest arsenal, and the greatest arsenal against him, against truthers like us who are struggling at grassroots level, being called all sorts of conspiracy theories, etc. It's great to know this historical background, but we need to, like, really get ourselves strong and resilient within. As I always say, strong and resilient within. But there is this ambiguity at the moment where I'm hearing trust the plan, trust the plan, trust the plan, but we've been trusting the plan for 3 years. The media seems to be getting their hooks again into the sort of sight of those that are aware of this truth. So with the media, which was the final takedown according to the Q movement, which we've known for a while. I remember something about Watergate, and I'm now thinking, is that to do with the watermarks on the ballot of these, of the cards? But it's being exposed, but we're all being shut down on social media. So what are your thoughts, Bishop, on the way the media is going to go, how this is going to be exposed in the next coming weeks? And while we are talking about, while you're educating us very powerfully on everything, the historical background and the in-depth detail, what can we expect in the coming few months from the media, from how this is all unfolding? Bishop, these are the questions our viewers are going to have.
That's beautiful. Here is what the mind of God is showing me concerning the next few months. First of all, the word of the Lord says, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. I love my enemies.
Right.
I love them. Every man, every woman who hates me, who wants to assassinate my character, my reputation, I can't be touched, because Americans and people all over the world are not stupid. So I still love my enemies, right? So God has anointed me to teach the hell out of them. It's another topic for another day. But what I see concerning the media, God forbid, God forbid if somehow this clone, Joe Biden, becomes president.
That's what I'm asking.
God is going to allow America to self-destroy itself. The church is going to be protected. And we're going to see what Trump was saying had truth and validity. Q was saying that President Trump will run for a re-election. So in the next 4 years, God forbid, if Joe gets in, we at QAnon must do to the left that they've been doing to us for the last 4 years. There's got to be a revolution of Christian constitutional patriots who are willing to die to expose the darkness. You see? Keep the grass low to make certain the snakes show. So CNN, NBC, MSNBC, and even Fox, I'm disappointed because they're calling certain states for Biden and the ballots have not even been counted yet. Why is Fox in the hole for Biden? Because Rupert Murdoch is compromised. You see, there's a few patriots at Fox, Sean Hannity,
they were okay.
Laura Ingraham, patriot, Tucker Carlson, love Tucker Carlson. There are people trying to get me on his show, my staff, and so we're working on it. Laura Ingraham, Judge Janine, those are the few patriots.
Oh, that would be great with Tucker Carlson, you and Tucker Carlson.
Ooh, that's it. That's it.
It blazed all of America. It would. That is what I'm praying to God now. Let that happen, God, please.
Lord, let it happen, Lord, in Jesus' name. Because those that we think are truthers, and they're well known, but they're in the pocket of the Mossad and the CIA. So I see that.
Yeah.
So I'm surrounded by jackals.
Yeah.
By Judases. So I navigate through wisdom.
Right.
Because I don't hate my enemies and I don't react. So the media is going to be destroyed. But now see in the next few months.
With the declassification of all the evidence that has been collected by the NSA, and they have all the evidence worldwide of the criminal activities, the inhumane things that have happened to children by people that we've trusted as celebrities, politicians, people in big companies, etc., who are complicit in the horrific crimes against children. Allegedly, the NSA have it all. So there are conversations going around that Trump has this all handled, and this is playing out like a movie, so that we cannot tell people, we can show people, we have to show people. Yes. So whilst there's this frenzy where all the truth is in, like, I felt pretty relaxed, but there's this frenzy about, oh no, Trump's lost the election. I personally don't think he has, and I think this stuff that he's going to the Supreme Court. Do you think this will go to the Supreme Court? Yes. Or with the revelations about the cheating and all of these things that are being exposed by the watermarks, it's a bit ambiguous at the moment, because we just don't know what, chess move they're playing, Q. Yes. But when you go back to some of the Q drops, you can see that actually past equals the future. So The media is definitely the arsenal that have to go, Bishop. But
yeah. See, the media is in the pocket of the world bankers. Every media outlet. We used to have true journalists in journalism.
yes,
Going back to the 30s and 40s and 50s, they're gone. The Walter Cronkite's, they're gone because now the corporatocracy system has overtaken the American media industrial complex. Remember the fall, the drowning of the Titanic. Well, the Titanic was sabotaged, by sabotaging the compass of how the operators of the ship, right? And so the compass, the mechanisms that would direct the ship were manipulated to go into icebergs. Who set that up? A man by the name of David Sarnoff, whose family owns NBC. Right. David Sarnoff created RCA, whose family or proxy owners of NBC was paid with Rothschild money to take down the Titanic because many of the patriots who were the passengers were against the creation of the Federal Reserve System, including the family of Levi Strauss.
Yeah, there are 4 people on there.
That's it. They were against the creation of the Fed. They did not want global international bankers to take over our country. So David Sarnoff, with Rothschild money, manipulated the course of that Titanic, which destroyed their souls because they were against the creation of a banking system. You see, in October of 1929, the stock market crash, who caused that? The international bankers. Yeah. They have manipulated the stock of America. So the world was almost destroyed because America was destroyed. You see, the world follows the lead of America.
Absolutely.
You see? Yeah. And so these devils today are the political offspring that took down the Titanic, that manipulated the cause for us entering into World War I and II. FDR knew the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor. He knew it. But he sat back to allow it to happen as a pretext to enter the war in order for the bankers to make money. They don't care whose child dies. It's all about money. And that's what Joe Biden's going to do. I'm telling you. Now, this crackhead of his son, this meth head, it's sad, but people don't care.
This is the thing. This is the cognitive dissonance. And just going back to the Titanic, and look how we were told that story, a love story, and this massive blockbuster movie.
Yes.
See, subliminal programming to actually distract our minds from the reality and the real history. Yes. What a show. What an absolute amazing show. Yes. I just have one quick question before we end, because we could go on forever, and I've got an idea for the next show as well, because that one will be powerful.
It's going to be powerful. I can't wait.
It will be about Hollywood, and that one's going to be really big, because we were going to talk about that, and I had a lot of messages about that. But this was important, pertinent to this time that we're in, to talk about this subject. But there's this subject about clones in my research and my sort of journey that I have gone on about on this truther journey, and I get things wrong. I don't get things right, and I'm just evolving all the time. However, I'm a bit uncertain about clones, and like, are they body doubles? Is it that they're actually just made? I don't know. Shed some a brief insight into clones before we end the show, Bishop.
Absolutely. Remember in the Tom Cruise movie Mission Impossible 1 that came out, I believe, in 96, 97. a part of the movie where he wears his fake rubber mask,
Yes.
right? And they have this patch that goes over his throat to mimic the voice pattern of the face that he's wearing.
Yes, with the John Travolta one. That was.
Yes, that's what's going on now.
I thought about that, and I always thought,
yes.
I wonder if that happens in real life.
Oh, it does. Anything that you see Hollywood portray
Is happening in real life.
It has already been, they've been given permission to show that, because the CIA controls Hollywood. The enemy of the state, JFK, Malcolm, anything that Hollywood shows, Swordfish with John Travolta, the agency out of Langley has already given them permission, which means you and I all think, man, that's up-to-date technology. It means it's old technology that the agency doesn't need anymore. So if we think the technology in Swordfish, right, in Mission Impossible is new, but when in actuality it's old, what does the CIA really have? In the part of the movie Swordfish with John Travolta, he was a Mossad agent who had created a body double, right? In part of the movie with John Travolta, there was a body double of John Travolta's character. I think his first name was Gabriel, right? He was in this freezer or this room, a body double. So they left that body double in a building that blew up, whereas the real body of the body double escaped.
Right.
Ended up in Morocco. Joe Biden is dead.
Yeah.
This thing we saw the other night.
Yeah. His ears is wrong. His actual forehead is a different size. If you look at the real Joe Biden, I feel sorry for this one. Yeah, he's not the one who's actually committed the crimes, and I am putting a lot of memes on my Facebook just to lighten the situation up. But this one's a real fool.
And even the eyes of this clone are darker than the original Joe Biden that has blue eyes.
Of course. I mean, it's an obvious difference. And that leads me to ask just another final question.
No, take your time.
Jackson.
Yes.
There are rumors about Michael Jackson being still alive.
I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Jackson's still alive.
That he's worked with Q. Lady Diana's been working with Q. These are all big, well-loved
that's right.
public stars.
John F. Kennedy Jr., JFK, we don't know.
Yeah, that one I definitely think he's there. I mean,
Tupac Shakur, Tupac is, he's been, seen in Cuba. We don't know if that's true, but rumor has it in Q that President Trump knows where Tupac is. But Tupac went into witness protection. Kobe Bryant went into witness protection.
Wow,
there's a lot of people think that Kobe's alive, right?
That's a bombshell.
And that was a body double in that helicopter.
Right.
So Kobe went into witness protection because what he knew about the impending coronavirus.
That makes a lot of sense.
You see?
And George Floyd, rumors are that he's I know.
That's powerful, because there was a company in Minneapolis that burned down that made body doubles, rubber, and there was a rubber body from the chest up of George Floyd, right? And that company that supported Biden, right, during the summer burnt down. The deep state burned down that building because I don't believe George Floyd is dead. I believe with that tattoo in his chest, order out of chaos. He was a high-ranking Mason, a Prince Hall Mason. And so they created this false flag.
It's a distraction.
As a distraction, 80% of the buildings that were burned down, just the buildings that were burned down, 80% were undershored through a company called the National Indemnity Company. Guess who owns that? Berkshire Hathaway. Wait a minute now. So Berkshire Hathaway owns the National Indemnity Company, which legally insured 80%, okay, of those buildings. Warren Buffett owns Berkshire Hathaway.
It's so incestuous.
See, this is wicked. And so Berkshire Hathaway, that's owned by Warren Buffett, gives this persona, this Sunnybrook Farm grandfather. He's a devil. If you remember, during the summer, these bricks ended up in these cities all over the country, put in by the deep state for kids to take to throw against buildings in Minneapolis. It was inscribed on the brick the word Acme, capital ACME, the Acme Brick Company. 80% is owned by Warren Buffett. The other 20% is owned by the Mormon Group out of Chicago, which its CEO is the governor of Illinois, Jay Pritzker. Wow. They're behind this. The helicopter that Kobe supposedly died in, the Sikorsky 76B, 3 years before Kobe's death, in 2017, January 2017, the Island Holdings Group out of Van Nuys, California, traveled to Chicago to purchase that helicopter for $517,000. Who owned that helicopter? The Mormon Group, the Pritzker family, who owns the Hyatt Regency Hotel.
Yeah.
The governor of the state of Illinois, who has Illinois on lockdown, sold that helicopter that Kobe Bryant died in, supposedly died on. This, you're talking corruption at a level. Oh, this is deep. That's why I'm hated.
No, you are not. I think you are loved by all.
I am loved too, yes.
You are loved by so many, but not by the corrupt individuals, because you're exposing truth, and nobody likes being exposed, and truth hurts, and no one likes the truth. The bad people don't like truth exposed. Bishop Larry Gases, every single time, it is an honor for me, and I have evolved so much in this journey with you. Thank you so much, and I cannot wait to do the fourth part.
I'm yours, okay? And you have my heart, and I love you, my sister. And maybe we can do this every week or every 2 weeks. So let's go for a part 3, part 4. So I'm part 4. I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to the response of your powerful listeners concerning the coming fall of the liberal apocalypse. It's going to be epic.
Okay. Thank you, Bishop.
I love you. God bless you, my sister, in Jesus' mighty name. And have a great evening, everyone. And we see you for part 4.
See you for part 4. Right. Let me stop the recording.
Love you.